Hey guys, my name is Batimio, and today we have learned that the first aid pack is seeing a big upgrade in Battlefield 4. It is becoming amazing now. The ACE 23 and the AEK are receiving a buff. Not exactly sure why that is occurring, but also the SRA is seeing more adjustments on the CTE. Before we can go into the reasons why I think the first aid pack is becoming awesome, we need to understand what they're doing with the med bag and how that is going to work on the battlefield. You guys know that since the big patch update recently, that the med bag has been nerfed hard. Basically, if you are in combat, you take some damage from a flying bullet, or a bullet flies over your head and you become suppressed, you can no longer get the health from a med bag. You have to wait upwards of 5-6+ seconds before you come out of combat. The problem with it right now, though, is that it's very easy to keep someone in combat. Like, one random stray bullet flies over you, it automatically kicks you back into combat, and so you can be standing around one of these gadgets for upwards of 10, 15, 20 seconds, especially if you're playing on something like Metro and Locker, never receiving anything from the gadget. And so while a lot of people like the mechanic, me included, DICE agrees that they push things a little bit too far. The qualifications for being in combat are a little bit too severe right now. And so what they're going to be doing to alleviate this problem is that if you take damage, you're still going to have to wait 5 seconds before you can start to receive the health, but they're now going to add in a minimum suppression threshold before it classifies you back in combat. If a pistol shot flies over your head, you're going to be A-okay. It's not going to put you instantly back into combat. You can still receive the health, get back to 100, and continue on with your kill streak. If a light machine gun user notices that you just duck behind some barriers and continues to fire volleys after volley of rounds in your direction, you're absolutely going to stay in combat. And so essentially what these changes accomplish is that, first of all, it's going to be more of a conscious decision on the part of the player to keep you suppressed. He's going to have to work with his teammates to be like, hey, I'm going to keep this guy suppressed. I already put a couple of rounds into him. It'll be a free kill if you're able to flank around, but you need to be the person that flanks around and takes him out while I keep the suppression going. On the other side of the coin, it will hopefully reduce the annoying factor of always being in combat. So if you're playing on something like Metro and Locker, this gadget will finally see a little bit more use and won't be just completely useless. And so in my opinion, these are all great changes. I think that while the mechanic in general is a good one because it has reduced the power of the assault and it has put it more in line with all of the other kits, I think that with these small adjustments here and there, it's gonna make the med bag not feel as restrictive as it was and simply just not as annoying. But the reason why I said all of this is important with relation to the first aid pack is that this little bag, the little one, is now going to heal you even in combat. Here, for example, I'm just running around, I got into a firefight, I killed him, I instantly placed down the first aid pack, and you will notice that my health immediately starts to tick on up when it latches onto my body. So essentially, it is now going to be an extremely effective offensive gadget compared to the med bag. In my eyes, this is an amazing change because there really has never been a great distinction between these two gadgets. I mean, you guys all know that when the game launched, everyone was using the first aid pack because, well, that's what you started off with, but once you got to the rank where you could unlock the med bag, everyone graduated on over to that gadget and never looked back. And so I really do think that the fact that it will now immediately start to heal you once it latches on and has no problem with the suppression effect, even if bullets are zipping by, it will continue to heal you. If you take damage, I should mention this, it's still gonna stop, much like it did since day one. If you take damage, it will stop that healing process, but as long as you're behind a barrier, it doesn't matter how many bullets are zipping by, it's gonna continue to heal you, and I think it's for this very fact that this gadget will finally be a viable option on the battlefield. What it really looks like DICE is going for here is that if you want to be very mobile and you want it to be an offensive medic, then use the first aid pack. It's going to allow you to have that type of playstyle. It's going to allow you to get back into the action very quickly, but the downside of it is, of course, you can only heal yourself or a few teammates at a time. If you want to play more of the defensive role, then the med bag is going to be right up your alley, allowing you to heal multiple teammates, but of course the downside is that combat restriction. I think that these changes are phenomenal because really, in my eyes, it's gonna finally allow us to make that distinction between these two gadgets, but also just give us more options on the battlefield when we are playing as the assaults. One thing that really took me by surprise is that they flat out buffed the ACE 23. The ACE 23, you know, that gun that everyone uses, it's amazing, it's an all-around fantastic assault rifle. Well, instead of the standard 31 rounds that you have in the magazine, or 30, you now get 36 at your disposal. I don't get it. I guess it's because of realism, and this gun in real life just has a larger magazine size, but that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense in a video game format where this is easily one of the best assault rifles in the game, and now they're just giving players even more firepower. To make things even more interesting, they've also made some adjustments to the AEK. They've reduced its first shot recoil, but also increased its overall recoil when you hold down the trigger. My first reaction to this was, oh, DICE is going to be nerfing the AEK slightly so it's not a dominant force on the battlefield, so that it's maybe not as effective at long-range combat. Still going to be an amazing close encounter weapon, which is what it's supposed to be with that high RPM, but not that dominant force that it is right now. That doesn't appear the case. I actually would say that the AEK is really good right now on the CTE. Because of that first shot recoil being reduced, I was having no problem taking out people at all distances. Medium, long range, no problem whatsoever. Just had to tap fire a little bit more. But it's like the AEK is also phenomenal. So I'm not exactly sure what DICE is doing right now with the weapon balance. This, of course, is the CTE, and so they will be going in and making some adjustments, but at least right now, this is a head-scratcher because these are two weapons that are already amazing in normal Battlefield, and it looks like they're getting basically a flat-out upgrade on the CTE. Another thing that came completely out of left field for me is that it looks like they also want to give the ammo box the same treatment that the med bag has right now, where if you are in combat, you're also going to have to wait a couple of seconds before you can grab some ammo from the gadget. It's not as severe as the med bag. It looks like it's only going to take you 1.5 seconds to wait, but I don't really understand why this necessarily needs to be in the game. Like, I've never thought to myself, oh man, if that enemy wasn't able to get ammo from the ammo box, hot damn, I would have been able to kill him. Like, no, like that hardly ever happens on the battlefield. From the description, it looks like they're just trying to do this for consistency's sake, so that all of the kits have this restriction in some capacity, or I guess I'm assuming that's what they're going for, but I just don't think that this is needed in the game. I don't think that this is something that is going to promote teamwork. It probably will diminish teamwork overall, and I really just do not think that this is really needed in Battlefield 4. Another thing I wanted to mention is that the SRA is once again seeing some more adjustments on the CTE. You may have heard a couple of weeks ago that this rocket got nerfed hard. Like, in my eyes, it pretty much got nerfed into oblivion because they nerfed its turn radius, its turn speed, but they also nerfed how far it can travel. It just simply doesn't have the same range that it did. And so while it's still not as good as it is right now on normal Battlefield, they're trying to make some improvements and not make it the useless pile of crap that it was a couple of weeks ago on the CTE. So what they're doing, and their compromise that they've come up with, is that they've increased its turn radius by 40% from what it was a few weeks ago, so it's still not as good as it is, and they've also increased its reticle, so you can actually see more of what's going on in front of you. You have a wider field of view when you are aiming down sights. This is a much better place. Like, honestly, before it was useless, and now with these changes, I could see this being at least a somewhat viable rocket on the battlefield. That being said, though, I still don't understand why they're even attempting to rebalance the SRA to begin with. Everyone that I talk to, and maybe I'm just talking to the minority, they find that this rocket is a very skillful weapon to use. One of the most skillful weapons on the battlefield, because if you want to get good with it, you have to invest an incredible amount of time, and even if you do get savvy with this rocket, it still takes a fair amount of luck and a lot of skill to hit some of these targets. And so I just think it's overkill. I mean, the fact that they're increasing the maneuverability and the agility of all of the helicopters, making them a harder target to hit to begin with, but then nerfing one of the most skillful ways at taking out these vehicles, leads me to assume that when these patch changes go live, that we're going to see more people using the Stingers, those lock-on missiles, because it's going to be a much more effective, or really the only effective way at taking care of some of these air vehicles, and more people just gravitating back on over to the RPG and the SMA because they won't leave themselves exposed every single time they fire a rocket at a tank, for example. Just my 2 cents though. But yeah, guys, that is about it for today's little update. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts about the new and improved First Aid Pack. Do you think that this is a great step in the right direction? Is this now going to be your preferred gadget of choice when you are playing as the Assault class? Let me know down below. But until tomorrow, guys, have a good one and take it easy.